Hey, everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. You'll notice that there's just two of us this time around. Our brother Brian is down in Orlando visiting family, and I think he's also doing a work thing, too. It was unclear from the email message, or he was working while he was down there or something like that. And our brother Caleb is in the midst of his finals. He had his last day of law school ever yesterday. I can guarantee that I know what a great feeling that is. And
oh, what a feeling.
So if you are in contact with him, if he's within your orbit, please consider just sending him an email message for good luck over the next few days. Again, he has the exams, and then the summer will be the bar exam. So
The bar.
Yeah. With the bar exam. Oh my God! Because I took New York and New Jersey, and you get home after, because it's 3 days of testing. You have a multi-state portion, which is in the middle. So I took the New York portion on Wednesday, the multi-state on Thursday, down in New Jersey. I traveled from Albany, back down to Jersey. That's a whole other story. And then, Friday is the day that's the state-specific Jersey test. And I got home, and you're wired up, so you can't initially decompress very quickly. I finally got to sleep about 11 o'clock, and then I woke up at 4. And I thought, oh, God, I only got a few hours. I'll go back to sleep. I thought it was 4 a.m. It was 4 p.m. the next day. I've never slept that long. Never slept that long. And the cats gave me the dirtiest looks you ever saw from an animal. Even though there was still water in their bowl, and there was still dry food, but they're on a schedule,
Yeah.
And it was some of the dirtiest looks I've ever received from any creature on this planet, ever.
Yeah, how dare you steal our gig?
Oh,
we're the ones supposed to be sleeping 20 hours a day.
Even when I fed them, they were huffy. Even after I fed them, they were just looking at me like, "You gonna do this again?" I'm like, "No, kids. It's gonna be a one-time thing." But hey, John.
John joining us tonight. John Runyon, Comic Book Bears Assemble. Good to see you, John.
What did John have on his show? Was it something where they were ranking the Marvel movies? Was that yesterday, or is that something else he's doing?
I missed his show last night, so I did not get to see. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Maybe John can let us
know. John will let us know in the comments. Because I feel bad. I actually fell asleep during. Oh, it is coming up. According to John, the ranking of the Marvel movies is coming up, and guys, definitely tune in to a comic book look on that on a future Wednesday, because that will be a pretty cool show. Last night I fell asleep while watching the end of Underwater, which was the Kim Wall story. Oh my God, that was so depressing. Like, that second part just totally destroyed me.
When they got into his interest in the snuff films and
it's just
dark. Really dark.
Just so dark, and I was so sad because all of her friends, all of Kim Wall's friends that they interviewed were like, everything is just all about him. What about our friend who had this promising future, this this amazing career that she was building, just literally snuffed out in some stupid eccentric tycoon adventures.
And then the news continues to be about him with that escape.
Exactly.
Exactly. It was crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, hey, David Toby has joined us. Hey, gentlemen. Hey, David, who just celebrated a birthday a few days ago. So happy birthday. And John does want to listen, so we'll promote John here. Saturday, May 14th, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. They're going to be ranking those Marvel movies. So tune into that.
I would not want to do a ranking of that many films.
It's a lot.
It's hard enough for me to come up with the top 10. I remember one time picking my top 10 films, and that was agonizing. Like, ooh.
Yeah, but if you're just doing it, if you're like keeping it within the box, within the framework of the MCU, and that's there are only so many movies, and there are definitely some good ones and some not so great ones.
There's some I've changed my opinion on over time. That the experience going to see it in a theater compared to a rewatch was something very different.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of seeing things in the theater. I finally saw the many times delayed Morbius 2 years after it was supposed to premiere.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine.
Yeah.
And I think a couple things were against it. One of it being that it was rated PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to be on the level of like maybe a Blade in terms of just the action and the potential for bloodshed, which of course we didn't see all that much. It looked like a early 90s Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat. Everything's gray or black, you don't really see anything. Yeah. Matt Smith, who played sort of the villain, I'm not going to give away too much there, he did a great job. I think he did a pretty cool job. Didn't have a lot to do, but did it really well. But yeah, and I know a lot of people were pissed off about the post-credit sequences. And
why are they pissed off? Why would you be angry?
I think I think the thing that really kind of drives it is the fact that they're in a world that has no Spider-Man, and yet they're putting together a group. Sony is putting together a group of Spider-Man's biggest villains. Why, if there's no Spider-Man to bring them together? What are they using? What kind of contrivance are they going to push?
I hate fan entitlement though. It's like, I'm angry. It's like, shut up.
Yeah, it's like they made a movie for you. Like, shut up. Like, who knew that Morbius the Living Vampire would ever get a movie? Yeah. It got a movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it got a movie.
The latest nerd rage, and this relates to comic books, if you've seen about the Hasbro Legends have switched to more environmentally friendly packaging. So there's less and less PVC being used. There's less plastic being used. So it's almost all paper container now. And I can understand some apprehension that you can't actually see the figure, and if there's if there's defects on the paint job or something. I understand that a little bit, but not to the extent that these people are acting like, oh my god.
Yeah.
At the same token, you're also, for the most part, not going into retail, ordering this stuff online, so you can't see it anyway. So that's like, it doesn't even matter. Like, how does that even? But the rage over that stuff is like, if that's the worst thing to happen in your life, you have a pretty good life. You have space in your life to be outraged about the materials
about something so. And in 30 years, we'll see how it fares on Scouting for Toys season 30. Like, I mean, how well is this going to be pulling an auction? Probably pretty damn well, I would think, regardless.
You mentioned the show, and especially for the Yanks, I'm not sure if they even know what the hell you're talking about. There is a British show that both Steve and I have been watching through Means called Scouting for Toys. And it deals with a where are they? Salford or Hull or?
They are. It's in an industrial estate somewhere. They mention it multiple times. Somewhere up north.
Yeah. Somewhere up north. But it's this auction house, and they usually cover they usually have a main topic and then like one or two side topics. And this week they had a Superman fan. This woman who became a fan through Superman Returns, and she had so much enthusiasm, and her smile was so infectious. I adored her. I adored her from the first second she was on the screen. So if you do have the means to see it, it's a show called Scouting for Toys. We'll probably get its 4th episode, I think, in a few days. So
yeah, I think it's on usually like Thursdays, or I think it's on Fridays.
What's the auction company? Vector?
It does start with a V.
We do our homework, folks. We just
we do. Well, we didn't think we were going to be talking about this, but no, it's definitely one of the premier auction houses in the UK for this type of thing. So they have toys. They have very, anything that's sort of related to that type of collector. From Matchbox cars to Star Wars figures to they had something last week on those paper paper stages with that they used to have in the 1800s and the early 1900s that were pretty interesting. So it's a pretty interesting show, Scouting for Toys. That's our pre-woof of the week, I guess.
And in terms of news, we haven't had much. Hey James, how you doing?
Yeah, James Figueredo has joined us. Hey, good evening, you handsome bears, handsome James.
I'm not feeling very handsome today, I gotta say.
Oh,
I'm not. I'm just not. I was gonna, just ferment the shit out of this today, and there was something in the back of my head just saying, "Don't do it." Like you were gonna get sick or something, because it's like I gotta blow dry the shit out of this, just.
Oh.
I get sick easy. I haven't been sick in 2 years, so I don't know. If I get sick, I don't want to be from a goddamn shower. So I was gonna do that, but it just, I'm just feeling like a little old right now. But
I think it looks really good, but okay. You always look good to me, boss. So
thank you. I did go back to the gym this week, which I'm happy about after the sprained foot. And the lessened COVID concerns and. Hey, John, Bill, you were woof. Oh, thank you. I really did not say that to solicit this stuff. I really didn't say that.
Just fish it for those compliments.
There's days you don't feel. There's days I think everyone feels that they just don't feel attractive. This is one of those days. But I went back to the gym. So for the next few weeks, it's going to be every other day. And then when I reach another weight loss plateau, it's going to start being every day.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was really hoping I'd be fighting fit by Heroes, but that's not going to happen. But I bought my plane fare this week, so it's real now. So
one step closer. We're all one step closer to Heroes in June.
We got to talk about how damn early it's going to be on Tuesday for me, but we'll get to that at some point. You're up early anyway. Yeah.
Here we go.
Thank you, James.
You do look good, Bill, says James.
I should have said this when we first started doing the video. When you feel attractive.
Beep, 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 beep. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're excited to see that at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, in June.
Yeah. That can tie into my Geekettes.
Because awesome!
I went to a convention last Saturday. An honest to
Excellent.
God
convention.
Tell us about it. First one since Baltimore that I went to that was of that size, and was also a presenter at a panel, and that was Fan Expo in Philadelphia, which was the former Wizard World. Takes place at the same venue, the convention center right by Reading Terminal, and
cool.
Our friend Chris Cummins, who was on the show last week, not 2 weeks ago, sorry. We were on panel for a discussion about the multiverse, and that went really well. And at some point, we're going to have the audio, and that'll be a bonus episode. So I'll present that to you. But a few things that I got. Not going to provide too much here, but for John, since he's watching, we had a discussion about British comics. So I did get a copy of Spider-Man Summer Special from 1987. So that's a British reprint of American material in magazine size format. And another thing I got at the con was they had Mego, my 70s toy company that I have a huge fondness for. It's been revived, and they actually had the guy who's been the main source of parts for reproductions and things like that. He's known as Dr. Mego. I was like, oh my God, you're Dr. Mego. Yeah. So it was nice meeting Paul, but I did get the variant of the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, neat.
And the creature from the Black Lagoon was a black and white film. It wasn't a color film. And what they did, and they also did this for Frankenstein and some others, they had black and white variants of the figures. So that's cool.
That's neat.
Probably my favorite Universal monster, the creature. Mentioned Chris, and the thing that Chris and I always do is we're always on the lookout for each other. We're always on the lookout for dollar bin stuff and Dollar Tree videos and things like that. So in his care package for me, he got me. This was the in the '60s. They had very small, much smaller than this, books of Marvel comics that were in vending machines. They were called the Marvel Mini Books, and this is a reprint of them from Abrams in hardbound. So it reprints the 6 that are there. So you can see the covers there, which have the characters Thor, Spider-Man, Captain America, Nick Fury, Incredible Hulk, and Millie the Model.
Of course.
So looking forward to cracking that open at some point. And a lot of people are a lot more familiar with this now because of the Marvel documentary on Disney Plus about this. In the '70s, there was a Spider-Man series that was only broadcast in Japan, and it had a lot of deviations from the Spider-Man legend. He had a giant robot named Leopardon, and he had a car known as the GP7, the Spider Machine, and this was one of the Hot Wheels issues of the Spider Machine. So I mean that's pretty cool. And apart from the con, I went to a small convention locally, and you can't even call it a convention. It's a small show. It's in an Elks Club. There's maybe 10 dealers, But one thing I picked up, I know I've waxed poetic about the Superpowers toy line from the 80s from Kenner of the DC Heroes, and there was a lot of tie-in products with that. So I did get, and this is something that was probably more for your time that you're more familiar with, the Which Way books and the Choose Your Own Adventures. Do you have those as a kid?
Oh yeah. Choose Your Own Adventures was like that was me. That was like me growing up. Yeah.
But I have a Which Way book of Supergirl under the Superpowers banner. So, and that's from 1984. And the last thing I just want to show off is people know me, know I'm a vinyl record collector. And they also know I'm in a bit of a Hanna-Barbera kick. So I did get golden records from the early 60s, Songs of the Jetsons, and Yogi Bear's theme song, and Before Yogi. So these are right from the shop in the next town over, Dr. Wonders. And,
cool.
It's really cool that you just put stuff aside for me now. They're like, this has a Bill vibe to it, doesn't it? Yeah. So, and they knew that I was, because I had asked them about, if they did have any of the season sets of the HB stuff. So this has been some of my recent geek gets.
Yeah, and I've just been stuck at home with the dog. So, well, I'll just live vicariously through you like usual.
Though, right?
I got tons of dog stuff.
Amazon.
She's got a new bed. We've got more dog food, more bird food. I've bought all the birds' food, so the birds are all stocked up for the next 6 months. Don't they have like
superhero stuff for dogs?
Well, Minerva does have a Wonder Woman collar that Jason got her. It's one of those cool ones that's kind of like it looks like a repurposed seat belt. It's pretty neat. Pretty cool. I would show you, but she's asleep right now. So, in the meantime, we have had some people join. Tony Gilkinson, evening guys.
Hey, Tony.
Evening, Tony.
Tony, I had to bail on a conversation with him earlier today because we had the podcast starting. So.
Well, now he can chime in, and
he tunes in a lot.
And David also made a comment. Now, how to convince Steve to come to New York Comic Con?
Yeah, the thing with that, though, we have to say is it's one of the harder shows to obtain tickets for, especially in a pro and press pass basis. And New York's pricey. It's just a pricey place. So
you gotta find a place to stay. You gotta get there. You gotta be at the show. Well, you gotta get in the show.
You've done it once.
Yeah. And it was a perfect weekend for it too. I got to visit with a bunch of friends and stay with a friend, in Manhattan, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
We also have. John made a comment here. We just need to get James to come to Heroes Con too,
or to Baltimore later, or maybe to Baltimore later.
Yeah, or maybe to Baltimore. I mean, talking about coming up to New York being a little bit tough. Like, how about all the way from Brazil, all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina, or Baltimore? But definitely. it'll be fun. And then, of course, David coming from all the way from Australia. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a little bit of travel. Now that people are feeling more comfortable traveling. Yeah. So it's nice to see these shows coming back and conventions, smaller conventions too, coming back. So,
well, we do have a subject for this particular show, which we haven't discussed yet, which means I'm a terrible producer. So for tonight's show, over the last few weeks, I was able to do my DC binge because the DCBS box came in. I know you have a big backstock of stuff. For me, I just plow through it. This is all gotta go in the bunker at some point. It's all gotta get ready.
Things that are not in boxes are unread, so just keep that in mind.
No. You don't think I can appreciate? So with that, since it was all DC reading for me, and since there were books that Steve was also reading that would fit into that idiom, we are going to be talking about 5 recent DC first issues. I'm not saying number ones for all of them because one's a 0 issue. But we do have 5 books that we're going to be talking about. And on the note of DC, there really hasn't been a hell of a lot of news of late, but one bit of news that hit today, which is outside of the comics world, but maybe indicative of something that has severe ramifications for the comics world, was that CNN Plus, which was the new streaming service that CNN had, started investing billions of dollars in, and very recently launched, is going to be having the plug pulled on it in the end of April, due to the decision making of the higher ups at what is now going to be known as Discovery Warner. And since DC is under that umbrella, I think a lot of people are, have some concerns. I guess that's the best way of putting it, about how that may affect the publishing arm, because this does seem to be that they do have a bit of a scorched earth policy right now in trying to, again, when this merger happens, Discovery agreed to take on $33 billion of debt, and it's got to come from somewhere. So. It's going to be an interesting few months before the dust settles with this, and hopefully not too grand an effect on the publishing wing, because let's face it, as an R&D arm, if that's all you view DC Comics as, it's pretty cheap in the in the scheme of things. But I think naturally there is a concern about what effect that might have. Maybe we just, as long as it's not all Batman, I'm okay,
just all Batman. I mean, it's already halfway to Batman now. My biggest concern, obviously, is the HBO Max situation, because HBO Max has been putting out some absolutely amazing shows. And, we could say specifically for DC content, but also for a lot of other content, too. I mean, internationally, they've been, bringing in and, and creating stuff for both, other markets as well as the U.S. market that are just absolutely fantastic. But I know, and people who work at Netflix also now know this, that kind of thing isn't cheap. And it's one of those things that Discovery is coming in with an entire stable of shows that they could probably make for a shoestring budget, because they're all reality or documentaries. And so they don't have these huge, high-profile, high-budget shows that they have to worry about. And that's what their experience is. Mm-hmm. Cheap, easy to make, throw them out there, and, people just lap them up because it's just crap. Not all of it, but a lot of it is
I was
crap.
Not say all of that. No.
There's some wonderful stuff, but there's mostly crap.
If there was a station that was all comic book related documentaries, I would not be watching anything else. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool, and I'm just worried how they're going to bring everything together, because it's all going to be under one.
I mean, it certainly is going to be one platform. It certainly is going to be one platform. And I also think that Discovery recognizes that Warner's is a very different animal from what they have. So. The only comparison on the Disney end was their takeover the TV wing of National Geographic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, Discovery is just a far bigger operation, particularly outside of the United States.
Oh yeah,
it's a huge operation. So we'll see how
just
it goes.
Don't sacrifice our comic book content and our great comic book shows that HBO Max has been really
well. Luckily, they've been successes. So apart from Swamp Thing, they've been successes.
Yeah. And even Swamp Thing was a special situation
with the tax burden.
My state,
your
my state screwed him over.
Speaking of which, I did watch the latest Young Justice. Ooh, did you see it yet?
Nope, no.
Ooh. I'm just gonna tell you this: they tie it into another DC show.
Oh,
and I did not see it coming. And it also makes sense because a lot of the same people worked on this show. This is the other thing I'll give you as a teaser. It involves a DC character that made its first appearance outside of the comics.
Harley Quinn?
No.
No.
Interesting. Yeah. And I don't even know if it's a show you watched, but it was really, really good. Really good. And just the whole thing that is so great. I mean, like, it's a loaded show, but I mean, between right now they have Rocket is a divorced mother, because this Icon's former sidekick. She's a bit older now. She has a son with autism. And it was a no-holds-barred depiction of what that is like for some people. So when you do get caught up, and the Atlanta stuff is awesome, and then when you get to this is like the post-Atlanta stuff with certain things going on, but most of it's concentrated in New Genesis right now. Yeah, it's really good stuff. It's as David said, it's spicy.
It's spicy, so spicy. Well, yeah, I'm just very far behind on that. So
yeah, well, let's talk
as I am on most other.
You are not far behind on.
Yeah, most of the DC books I'm far behind on as well, but I got caught up for this episode.
We have 5 books, and we're going to start with probably is the most marquee book of them. Maybe not. Maybe with World's Finest, that is. But the first one we're going to talk about is Flashpoint Beyond. Written by Jeff Johns with art by what's Russo's first name? It's Eduardo. How can I think of it? Eduardo Russo. All right, so Steve, why don't you give us a little synopsis, because this one shot on some strange cylinders. This was a bit weird, I thought.
It was a bit weird, and I think it's one of those. This is one of those books where if you were like me and came back to DC Comics at the start of New 52, you may not have seen as much of Flashpoint, when it was coming out. Thankfully, I caught back up on it after the fact. But this Flashpoint Beyond takes what you would have read in Flashpoint, if you read anything in Flashpoint, and flips it again, changes history again. But in this situation, it's Bruce Wayne who knows that things are different, as opposed to Barry Allen. So in the original Flashpoint, Barry Allen goes back in time to save his mother from being murdered by the Reverse Flash. He does so, and in doing so, huge ripples across the entire DC universe, change history completely, change how other heroes are born, how they come to their powers, what their whole situation is. Atlantis is at war against the Mascara and the Amazonians. There's, Superman has been captured by the government at when he crash landed, so he's never been up above, on the surface, and has been a test subject this whole time. But also, one of the biggest things was Batman. His origin is changed, where it's Bruce himself who is killed Sorry, I actually misspoke earlier. I meant Thomas Wayne, not Bruce Wayne. But Bruce Wayne is shot and killed in that alley, and Thomas Wayne becomes Batman. Also, his wife breaks from the grief and becomes the Joker in this world. But Flashpoint was erased, supposedly. Everything was erased once Barry Allen restarted the entire DC universe with New 52. They did return to the Flashpoint universe a couple times. Over the past couple of years, some interesting, some cool things here and there. Thomas Wayne has made many appearances. Back. But presumably everything in that was still coming off of what happened in Flashpoint. Here, Flashpoint Beyond, very quickly because I've been talking way too long. Thomas Wayne is very confused because he thought that his world should be completely gone by now. Like, it should have been erased. Everything should be fine. No, it's still there. And on top of it, Barry Allen doesn't remember that he's ever been the Flash. Everything that was supposedly fixed when they were, going through the events of Flashpoint, most of them didn't happen, didn't resolve themselves. All sorts of craziness was left, and he doesn't remember this. He remembers everything being fixed, and now he's stuck basically back in this world where things are still terrible. And there never was a New 52, or at least in his mind, there never was a New 52 again. However, there seems to be a connection, and again, it's all just kind of in the background, with the Time Hunters. With Rick Hunter and the rest of the Time Hunters, something that they may have done, some kind of interaction that they may have had with Bruce Wayne in our universe may have created this type of situation. There seems to be something there, and Bruce Wayne, we do see Bruce Wayne Batman, in our universe also,
which is like effectively a preamble.
Yeah, sort of like encountering something that may, lead into what happened here. And two of my favorite characters from Doomsday Clock make an appearance again, the Mime and Marionette, and I just absolutely love seeing them in things, working with Bruce Wayne Batman. But meanwhile, you've got Thomas Wayne Batman trying his damnedest to figure out what to do to put everything back to the way it was.
Yep.
And fix this whole Flashpoint universe. In a very horrible, very terrible things happen in that. But what did you think? Like, is this a good setup? This isn't a zero issue.
I'm glad it's a zero issue, because if it was a first issue, I would have been, oh my god, like, where are they heading with this? At least with a zero issue, with that particular kind of conceit, there's a little bit more leeway if it is a bit more disjointed. I do hope that they fix Thomas Wayne, because it's very confused for me to try to reconcile that this is the same character that recently appeared in Justice League Incarnate as Kal-El's best buddy, though they're from different worlds. I know the Earth 52, New 52 version of him was different, but we also had in Tom King's Batman run a fairly psychotic version of Thomas Wayne. As at one point one of the main antagonists. So I do hope they fix it a little bit, just a better understanding of who he is and where he's been.
Which Thomas Wayne is this?
Wayne is this?
What time?
There were things I loved that we started, because the last thing I expected was a continuation of threads from Doomsday Clock. So that was a big surprise. I loved the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, as the sycophantic assistant to Thomas Wayne.
Basically, really his Pennyworth. Like, basically his Alfred is Cobblepot.
Just that we do get a sense, that with Bruce Batman, there's few things he won't do to get the job done. short of killing somebody. Thomas Wayne is cut from a different cloth, so I think that makes for some very interesting storylines sometimes. I thought this stuff involving, and it'll be interesting where that goes with Harvey Dent's family, was very interesting.
Yeah.
With the wife being obsessed with the Joker, the Martha Wayne Joker, and the rescue
His
of the
son.
and and then characters from the 60s right towards the end, Orko and Corky from the Time Hunters team. You just don't expect things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. And I also think that there's probably a shitload of alignment with what's ever going to be happening with Death of the Justice League into Dark Crisis. I have a feeling, honestly, just because of Joshua Williamson's personality, that I do think the future for DC is going to be a lot more brighter than
I hope so.
We're expecting in some.
There's so we went from from death metal, dark, doom, everything just being just the infected, everything terrible over the past several years, and some great exciting stuff.
I've said this on the show before. Oof. I think a big perception with DC Comics versus Marvel was DC was the heroes you would want, and Marvel was the heroes you would get.
Yeah.
And I think at some point it was almost a flip flop with New 52.
Yeah.
The DC overstepped a bit. I thought there was a very nice course correction with Rebirth, but with Rebirth it wasn't completely codified because there were so many threads that were continuing from New 52. I completely understand that they didn't want to have a hard stop, but I do think that after we get through this, and it sounds terrible, like Death of the Justice League, Dark Crisis, I do think we're headed for a period because there are so many bright points of light between Yara Flor and John Kent and Naomi, that I do think that that's going to be more the tone going forward. I just have a feeling, at least looking at Williamson's Flash run, that though I wasn't crazy about all of it, but it was for the most part an upbeat book. And
bringing it back to the family, but bringing it back to Wally's family, and that being a big factor in the return of that version of the Flash over the past couple of years. So.
Have you been up on the Flash since Adams took over writing?
No, I'm still pretty far behind on that. Oh yeah, I get it.
Okay. You got to get back. Maybe you'll just have like a week where you just, all right, this is me.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. It's tough though. When I'm binging like 60 books, it's tough to get to get that in like 5-6 days. It's tough, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then also I've got like the newer books, like my indie books that I keep up on and stuff like that sometimes get behind, but or I pile them up. Anyway,
all right, Steve, take another DC book you want to talk about right now.
Well, let's go. What will it be?
What will it be?
Well, if we're already on the topic of event type books, why don't we go with the Trial of the Amazons that is happening right now? Last month and April. In the Wonder Woman books, and it is nice to say Wonder Woman books. Because over the past several months they've had several different books that Wonder Woman has had. Now, Nubia ended. Wonder Girl ended.
Nubia's not over. No, the tie-in series Trial of the Amazons are the last issues of Nubia.
Yeah,
Nubia's
exactly.
Not ended.
It's not over. Nubia 6 of 6 right here.
Yeah.
So that's over.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still within the Trial of the Amazons.
But yeah, so the other cool thing is they did bring Wonder Girl back. They have a limited series that's part of Trial of the Amazons. And then, of course, the main Wonder Woman book itself also ties in. So Trial of the Amazons, this intro book was actually great. There's been a lot happening in the world of Wonder Woman. A lot of things. Hippolyta has been part of the Justice League. Wonder Woman's been off in the sphere of the gods.
She was dead.
She was dead.
Dead.
Wonder Girl herself was going off and doing other things, and this is the Yara Flor Wonder Girl. And in the meantime, discovered an entirely new tribe of Amazon sort of cousins, more or less. And Nubia, of course, became the queen of the Amazons, the new queen when Hippolyta left the island. So a lot of things have happened. But there's also the concept of the Doom Door, the Doom Gate, that the Amazons have been one of the reasons why the Amazons are there is to protect the world from what's behind this door to Hades. In Themyscira. Yeah. And so some things have obviously come out of the door to Hades over the years, but specifically, they recently had some creatures that have broken out. Medusa came out of that, and it turns out that she's actually a normal but cursed woman who's now taking refuge on the island with the Amazons. But because Nubia was the guardian of this door, now that she's queen, they have to find a new guardian. And so for the Amazon culture, this usually means that they need to have a new trial. So they have to invite all of the Amazons to come together and fight for the honor of being the new guardian of the Door of Doom. And
it's
so
different from the Wonder Woman championship thing.
Exactly. Sort of like, being champion and whatever. This is very similar to that as well. And so all the Amazons, including the Bonamigdal, who are the sort of the anti-Amazons, but they're Amazons. They've been exiled. They have a more Egyptian tradition. This is where Artemis is from. This is where Atalanta is one of the queens. They come in, of course, swinging their insults and being all like, we're the real warriors here. We're the shits, and you guys are just soft little meh. And then, of course, now Yara Flor as well shows up with her new tribe of Brazilian, Amazonian, South American Amazons as well. And then also you do have Donna Troy and Cassie, the Cassie Wonder Girl also join the teams as well, and all come together for the trial of the Amazons. And everybody's sort of, just having the party. They're all getting together. We're all ready to do this. And what happens at the very end? There is a murder. And not just any murder. A very big character gets killed to just basically kick this whole thing off. I have to say, I thought this was really fantastic. There is a huge creative group on this. Basically, everybody who's been writing a Wonder Woman or related title all has a part in creating this event. You've got Stephanie Williams, Vida Ayala, Joelle Jones, Michael Conrad, and Becky Cloonan on writing duties. Joelle Jones, obviously. Braga, Patridge, Casagrande, Jordi Belair on colors. Just so many wonderful, artists, so many wonderful writers, everybody working very well together. And Bill, I mean, what's your impression of the art here too? I think it was so seamlessly done.
Yeah, something we were talking about before we started was there's 4 different artists on this book.
Yeah.
And the way that the storyline in the first issue is structured is that it's almost seamless as you are transitioning from one artist to another.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up the cases of Joelle Jones and also of Skylar Partridge. They have very different styles compared to the other two.
This splash page,
yes,
when Yara Flor shows up with everybody.
It's just joy. It's like we're sort of Amazons and we're awesome, and Jerry the horse. Just awesome stuff. But I thought they did a really seamless job of the transitions from one artist to another.
Just
also,
gorgeous.
It's also worth mentioning there's 5 writers in the book that are taking care of the different titles that are part of the Trial of the Amazons crossover. I thought it was expertly handled, and in terms of how that was structured. It was a situation where when I was reading it that I didn't exactly realize that there was a transition of the artist until it was abundantly clear from something very distinctive like you had provided with the Joe L. Jones. Yep.
Definitely. And, it continues into other books, too. You've got Nubia 6, which is the finale of her series. You've got
she has the new series coming up, though.
Yeah, she has a new series coming up, but this is sort of the end of this one. Yeah. You have the main Wonder Woman title as well, and then, of course, like I had mentioned, a sort of a mini-series tie-in specifically for Wonder Girl in this. And, again, it's the same. It is the Joelle Jones, Jordie Bellaire. It's the same team, so I think this is sort of a good swan song for the Wonder Girl series that was unfortunately canceled, where there's a lot more, and in this issue especially, they really dive into this new lost tribe, really introduce you a lot into what has been happening to bring them to Themyscira for the trial. But it's definitely really cool. Obviously, part of the trial of the Amazons is the trial to find the new champion to guard the door to Hades, but also a trial of all the Amazons to find out who murdered this central figure. Yeah. I thought it was really cool. I like that they're giving Cassie something to do. She's the hard-hitting investigator trying to figure out who murdered the person.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it because I think the Wonder Woman books recently have certainly the line has been schizophrenic. Nubia was very talky. And the Wonder Woman book seemed to be like a different type of comic with each arc. And the Wonder Girl book, again, you're talking about a character that's just getting her sea legs. So that's tough to present in anything but an origin story. And I enjoyed the crossover more than I thought I would. I thought it would be Nubia level talky.
I mean, there's the first issue. The first issue is a lot of,
also
people
it's
talking.
A mark of a good series is if you haven't read these books that I just talked about, it doesn't matter. It's basically a ground zero for the Amazon.
They fill you in on what you need to know, and then everything else is like, hey, just keep reading, keep seeing what happens. It's just
like this, it's like when the Escocitas come in, it's like, hey, we're Amazons too, and we're certainly having a better time than these other bitches. So that's all you need to know, and you get that just from the graphic, not beyond anything that was said. But,
oh yeah. And I've always been a fan of Artemis. That hard-headed, anti-Wonder Woman that's been kind of out there as part of the Banda McDowell. I'm not a fan so much of the other queen. What is her name? Faruka?
Oh, yeah.
Because you have Atalanta and Faruka, who are the dual queens of the Banda McDowell. I just cannot stand Faruka. But, I mean, she has
I also have a hysterical voice for Atalanta in my head. Like, almost like Scottish. Like, oh, that's what I do, my queen. Yeah. So I don't know where that comes from my head, but I just have that in my head whenever I read Atalanta. Oh boy. Okay. I guess it's my turn for a book.
Yeah.
And we talked about one of the Trinity. Let's throw in the other two. And the book that I want to talk about is Batman Superman World's Finest #1. Once again, we have an ongoing Superman-Batman team up. Yeah, Batman is billed first. He's currently out selling. But,
well, also you had the Batman-Superman title.
And you had a Superman-Batman title, and you had World's Finest that lasted 37 years. Yeah, so so we've had many stories. And it is certainly, I felt more in tone with kind of Silver Age joy, what we saw here in this. It also marks Mark Waid's return to the DC universe, which is very welcome in certain quarters. And with Superman and Batman, we start at a point that is the not too distant past, but we also have a counterpoint story that takes place, effectively at the beginning of their relationship as a team. And what we have is a team up, and it is, they do say it. I didn't even think they say these words, of Poison Ivy and Metallo. So you have adversaries from both their cities, both their worlds, and they go against the Cape Crusader and the Dark Knight Detective. And there's a Robin in there. I assume it's Tim. If it's a few years, it's a Tim outfit.
Yeah.
I mean, the earlier one is definitely Dick. But whoever it is, I just love when Robin refers to Superman as my friend. Because I particularly love, certainly with the Superman and Nightwing, the Dick Grayson relationship, and we have certain seeds of that right now playing out in the Superman and Nightwing titles, because Dick has been entrusted to look over John in a sense and help mentor him as he serves the role as this world's Superman. But again, we're talking about a few years ago. So Metallo does some sneaky shit and injects Superman with not green kryptonite but red kryptonite. And from the history books, red kryptonite, it's schizophrenic. It can affect him in a multitude of ways, and he's not seeing things correctly, and he's all messed up. So when you think of not seeing things correctly and all messed up, who do you think of? Who are you going to call? The Doom Patrol. So,
of course,
why not? But we do have the original Doom Patrol. We have the Rita, Larry, Cliff version, and they're trying to determine how best to get Superman off of this. Off of this rampage that he's on. I mean, he's trying to destroy Bruce, thinking he's Luthor and all kinds of crazy shit. And at another point, when the Doom Patrol first appear, he thinks they're Zod and Ursa and Non. It's in some really good action sequence. I mean, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Fathoom. That's how Superman should be, baby. It's really cool.
I mean, Dan Mora did such a great job with this. I think it was just because it brings in. Yes, it kind of has its Silver Age feel, but it also has like a really cool, 90s feel to it too. But like the good part of the early 90s, like the 80s and 90s, just that kind of fun action, but also with a little bit of extra.
It's still coming off the Bronze Age, but it's a little more grounded in reality. But there's still crazy shit that can happen. And at the end of the issue, the Niles, the chief of the Doom Patrol, is about to operate on Superman. You have a great line from Dick, just saying, looking at Batman, saying, "Are you out of your mind?" And I mean, Wade certainly knows these characters inside and out, and it was really energetic, and it was like a big screen comic, and we haven't had a lot of those. I mean, I think when you're talking about the 90s again, maybe into the early 2000s, things like the Authority and the Ultimates, this did almost have a bit of like an Ultimates feel, too. Not as vulgar, but just in terms of that widescreen presence, I thought it nailed that pretty perfectly. Yeah.
It also feels that it doesn't necessarily have to be a 5-issue arc. Like, this almost feels like it could be
have it done in
2
one,
parts.
You could have a 12-issue,
Yeah, I mean, like you have the villain team up. Well, that's over with at the beginning at the end of this book, and then now it's like going on to something else. So we got a couple comments here. David's more pink kryptonite, please. Oh, sure, why not? But also James came up here. That reminds me of the World's Finest miniseries in the 90s starring Tim Drake and Superboy. That also had a team up of Ivy and Metallo.
Yes, I totally forgot about that.
So there you go. I'm wondering if this is kind of calling back to some of these, and we might have some. I mean, Mark Waid knows his stuff, so maybe he's going to start calling back to different World's Finest stories.
Yeah,
of the past to kind of bring into these more modern tellings. So could be.
So there, I'm saying it's cool. Tim. It's definitely Tim.
Yeah, Tim is definitely the new one. Yeah, for sure. It's Tim who's in the modern story, and then the other one. And there's a comment and I can't remember if it was Tim or Dick who was saying this, where somebody said, "Let's toss a coin and figure out who does what," and Tim's like, "Don't toss a coin. Like, don't bother that." It's like a little bit meta there, kind of understanding almost what happened with Jason Todd. Like, no, let's not do this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun.
Also,
it was a fun
through
book.
the entire run of the Superman Batman stories up to 68 or 69, Robin was a third wheel. He was a factor in every one of those stories in the original World's Finest. So that they do have a Robin presence, I think, is a nod to that. But I also think he's kind of a necessary character. I like the idea of, I mean, I can totally see situations with Dick or Tim where it's like, oh, Bruce is driving me fucking crazy. Clark, can I just hang out with you for just an hour?
Well,
do you have something I could do? Can I just tie the guys up once you're done?
Just hang out here, maybe type in a couple keys. Well, and also Lois and Jimmy do make an appearance here and are involved when things are going down in Metropolis.
Alfred's in there too.
And Alfred makes a quick appearance. But yeah, I mean it's an interesting. I think it was an interesting start to this new series of World's Finest.
Yeah.
So
I also thought that the appearance of the Doom Patrol is kind of a signal that this is a team book and the team ups can happen, not just with the two characters. Everything
and Doom Patrol
on the table. Yeah.
And Doom Patrol. Like, nobody throws in Doom Patrol for anything, unless maybe it's a Teen Titans thing where Beast Boy is like, oh, guess what? I got these old friends of mine, that you might know about, and then it's Doom Patrol again. Yeah. But yeah, pretty cool. Okay. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thank you, Wade and Mora.
Another book there, Steve. What's the next one you're going to talk about?
So, the next one, and this is, again, I'm going to mention it. The TV series has not been doing it really for me, and I know for you, probably even less. And so I am a couple episodes
about it. There's things about it I like, but
there's stuff that just I'm like, I want to love this show so much, but
she's
there's some
good.
Other things.
I think she's very good. Yeah. And I was 6 episodes in when I realized that the father was the son on Seventh Heaven. I just did not realize that. Yeah, that's Barry Watson.
Interesting.
I was apparently you were a few episodes.
Now I know too. Well, now I've got to go back and relook at the data a little bit closer. But the one thing that I do always enjoy, and I have been enjoying, is Bendis's Naomi books, and so. He had the first Naomi series that introduced the world to the character, and was the precursor to her joining Young Justice and then the Justice League. But he's back to just having her book, Naomi Season 2. So again, just kind of going with that theme of a second season for this, because I don't think the show's going to get a second season, but the comic did. So there you go. But he's in this with, let's see, who did he have? David F. Walker is writing, and of course Jamal Campbell, doing the art. And the art here, and I think a lot of that does have to do with the coloring, and I guess Campbell's also doing the coloring, Wes Abbott on letters. But it has a very vibrant, animated quality to this. Yeah. That just stands out. And some of these colors, I mean, this is just a gorgeous page. And this is just a flashback page. Like, this is just like, some stuff that happened, But there's just some really great moments where the character faces really sort of bring the expression, like, what that character's thinking, what's happening there just by a look that Naomi has. But this it's an interesting sort of start to this new series. It starts off with her talking with her therapist, kind of saying, well, yeah, I'm part of the Justice League, and like all this stuff has happened. I'm like this big superhero now, so but things are a little bit weird with my parents, which is kind of understatement of the year. Like, here's they adopted this girl knowing that she was that she was an alien, but not really understanding the extent of like what that meant. And now, of course, she's one of the most powerful people on the planet and part of like the big supergroup. Her father, of course, is I think he was Ronian. Her father was Ronian, and Dee, who runs the garage, is Thanagarian in town. So they're so they of course had this long rivalry. We're at war. Yeah. And then, of course, the third party, which is the family, or at least the planet that Naomi is from, that version of Earth. It was like this third sort of like this Zumbadu, who is this other third antagonist who blew the Thanagarians and the Loranians out of the water in terms of power, and so of course they. The situation that we find herself in here now that she's back home is that her dad doesn't really know what to do with her. She doesn't know what to do with her dad because her dad's like, he really is. She didn't really understand this, but her dad is a former military, highly elite military warrior. And he sees his daughter as someone who's just completely untrained. Naomi's like, hey, I've been ripping shit up as part of the Justice League. Like, I know what I'm doing, right? And her dad's like, no. You need to understand that you have all this power. You need to be able to use it. And they're having that disconnect, and they don't really know what to do. So she's been relying on her therapist, relying on Dee. But something happens at the end of this book that sets up this new season, this new chapter for her, that might leave her not trusting her father as much anymore. How far back does this Rand versus Thanagar rivalry, what does that mean now that she can see them, she knows who he is, she knows who Dee is, who's her other mentor. So pretty interesting, really cool. And of course, I mean, Jamal Campbell's just brilliant. So I'm between Bendis and Campbell, I think this is going to be another beautiful series. So we'll see how it goes. And 6 parts.
I am not as effusive as you are about what we've seen so far in the second volume. I really felt like nothing happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not a lot happens.
Not a lot happens. And there would be some parts where if I wasn't already familiar with the series and with Justice League, my head would be scratching. Like, why the hell is Black Adam there?
What about Black? Yeah. What about Black Adam?
I think there was a lot of stuff here that was assumed, and I do think a big problem right now is Naomi's story is taking too long to be told. There's still so many question marks hovering over this character and her heritage and her powers and her place in this universe that it's, at this point, I'm frustrated. At this point, she shouldn't be Naomi. She should be whatever her superhero name would be. That element of that is taking a bit too long.
I mean, this is Bendis' baby, basically. Yeah. Like, this is a character that
him and Walker, and also as a tribute to Dwayne McDuffie, where they take the name from. And I agree with you. The art is exquisite. The colors are exquisite, and I think there's something very special when an artist does his own colors. But the trajectory it's too slow. We need more to happen, and there needs to be some resolution already about her backstory. Because at this point, I'm bored. I don't want to be like 4 years from now, and she's Naomi, and she's still in high school, and you got the tubby best friend. And, I don't need that. I mean, maybe they may be great stories, but the character needs to evolve at a quicker pace than it has.
Well, do you think part of that is the fact that he's already thrust her into situations that are well beyond where this character probably should be at this point in her origin story?
Yeah.
She's already gone through, she's been on like the big the big book. She's been on the marquee title. She's been, a part of several teams as the powerhouse. So, that's already a role that probably should belong to somebody who's been fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And now it's back down to a very
level of
local.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's back down to a local
Not
story.
Not just in their abilities, but in who they are. So it's there's something about the momentum that is off, and they need to speed it up.
David here, are we really surprised that a Bendis story is decompressed?
Well, the thing is, though, with Bendis's moments of decompression in the past, they worked. I think when they really worked, it's because they were established characters.
Yeah.
I am okay with Avengers Prime with one issue of them being just the three of those guys talking. I was completely fine with that because they have the back history, and we know that even creations that he had of his own making, like Jessica Jones, we didn't get the decompressed moments until there was more establishment of character and purpose.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel. So I do think the decompression tag to Bendis is warranted, but those are also some of my favorite moments. My favorite moment in Avengers is when Doctor Strange and Iron Fist, two characters you would never put together apart from being on a team, are sitting on a car, and since Iron Fist is so wealthy, he just says, "Hey, how about I buy you a car?" They're talking about new models. You never see, there aren't many other writers that would do that. Sometimes it's the slower moments. And I also think, there were some, I have not gotten through all of Ultimate Spider-Man, but the high school moments, which are slow, they're very sweet in many points. And,
they're establishing. They're establishing for the characters, for the friends, for the relationships that make.
So I do think the decompression tag is well warranted, but I do think there's a very big difference from Marvel decompression Bendis to DC decompression Bendis, and we didn't have too much decompression in Superman. I thought.
No.
I thought Superman was like kind of like on a really even keel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think with Naomi here that it's essentially unearned to go back to this and have this kind of like, okay, now a lot is going to happen here. It's all going to be sort of like, sort of establishing where she is emotionally and where her relationship with her parents are. Like, do you think it's an unearned point? Because it's a #1 issue of a second miniseries after she's already done all this other stuff, but not as a headliner in her own book.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like if Naomi had been continuing this whole time, if this was like issue number 28, and here she is back at home.
Jesus.
Well, seriously, like if this were issue number 28 and she was back at home and like having to deal with her parents again, like I think that your concerns would have been allayed because it's like we've already had all this stuff happening. In her own book.
Justice League has been very Naomi dominated.
Yeah.
So in some ways, this is a 28th issue.
Yeah, I guess could be, maybe.
Yeah. All right.
You had another book.
I do have one more book, and this is from DC's Black Label. Oh, question, Steve.
Yeah.
Fables. Now that it's returning, is it bannered as Black Label?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is on Black Label now.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure if it was coming out with under that imprint.
Because they're going to say some naughty words.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to be Black Label to do that.
I think you do, actually. It helps, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And now they can have boobies if they need to have boobies. They can have boobies.
Okay. All right. Anyway. The Rogues. #1. I guess this is the current Prestige format. I guess you could call that now. This is what's evolved from the Dark Knight type of Prestige format. And this looks at the Flash's Rogues Gallery, but it doesn't look at them at the present day. It looks at them 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's centered, as you can imagine from the picture, on Captain Cold. And where we see Captain Cold at the beginning, he's working in a factory as a condition of his parole. Basically, all the rogues have effectively reformed to varying degrees. Let's put it that way. And He's working in a factory. He's living in a shack by the water, which people that they don't exist now. Just stop that. No one has a shack by the water by the city. They just don't exist.
Well, it could have been a van down by the river. I mean, they were at that level where it could have been a van.
Steve, it's
Yeah.
2020. This does not exist. Okay,
No.
Stop doing this, comic book people. Okay, it just doesn't exist. So anyway, but that looks more like a trailer though from this bit. Then that I buy it, but all right. Anyway, it's a really minor point. Okay, so anyway,
I think we should talk about this some more.
Yeah, at the beginning of the story, and just I should first mention the creators. It's drawn by Leomax, with colors by Matthias Lopez or Lopes, and it's written by Joshua Williamson, who has a history with the Rogues as being the writer, I believe, for 5 years on the Flash. From the beginning of Rebirth, it was quite a lengthy run. So we have Captain Cold 10 years after his last arrest. There is an indication that there was something really big went down. And as the story unfolds, it reveals that there were 2 principal rogues that died in this event. We haven't gotten the specifics of the event, but we do know that. So as we discussed, he is working as in a factory in Central City. He believes he's getting fired. He's being called up to management. He believes he's getting fired. He's actually being promoted. But there's some really shitty rationales behind his promotion too, that he hears about, and this sets him off. And with the various characters that have appeared in as part of the Flash's Rogues Gallery, one of the most colorful was Gorilla Grodd. And Gorilla Grodd is from Gorilla City, which is this advanced simian city that's it's Wakanda but with apes. Okay, which kind of sounds terrible now that I said it. But anyway, anyway, so but it's kind of like DC's Wakanda, or could be. It could be.
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. Anyway, he's thinking about the past, and the thing about Gorilla Grodd, even though he was sitting on a bundle of gold because it's rampant through Gorilla City, Grodd never had use for riches. It was all about power. So Snart, Captain Cold, knows that within Gorilla City, there's a shit ton of gold. Where Grodd used to have his headquarters. So he decides one last job. He's going to go in there and do one last job, breaking into Gorilla City to get this gold that Grodd doesn't give a shit about anyway. So he forms his team. He brings in his sister, the Rainbow Rider, who is now a social worker. He first attempts.
Is it Golden Glider?
Golden Glider. What did I say?
Rainbow Rider.
Golden Glider. Sorry, they both emerged in the 70s around the same time. I'm very sorry about that.
That's my Bruce Wayne mistake from earlier, right there.
I didn't even get the sex right. So we see the Trickster. We see Bronze Tiger from the Suicide Squad. We see somebody who's never been a rogue before, Magenta, who was Wally West's girlfriend briefly and was always losing her shit because her powers were weird. And last but not least, you can't have Captain Cold without Heatwave. So we have these characters. They've decided they're going to go with him on this adventure. And the first stop is going to be breaking out Mirror Master from not a prison, but like an assisted living facility. And so they go through all this mechanism, and at the very end, there is no question Captain Cold is a villain. And these guys are tied to him now and deep in the shit, whether they want that to be the case or not. I wasn't really enthusiastic about this book. There's some good rogue stories. Going back to Wade, I thought Wade was the one who handled the characters the best. with his run with Wally, because they didn't have the hatred for Barry that they had with Wally, and some of them ended up becoming, if not friends, a weird kind of detente that they had. That they would have crimes, but they wouldn't be worse than a bank robbery.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting issues where you do have Wally just kind of sitting. There's one at a party where he like crashes a rogues party, and they're like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" It wouldn't have happened with Barry. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of that story, and there's just so many lines about that. The biggest thing that Barry did was, and somehow by treating us seriously, we ended up becoming bigger jokes. And there's some really touching lines, and just basically saying, hey, we miss him too. Because it happens after Barry died in Crisis. But that's not that story. This is this story, The Rogues, from Black Label. It's going to be 3 issues in the large magazine format. Wasn't necessarily super excited about this, but I was really impressed by this first issue, and excited about the run.
Yeah, it has some good moments to it. I like... artistically, there's something that Leomax does when he's confronting Golden Glider, and he's trying to get his sister back into the mix, and it has one of those moments where it's just that he takes a beat.
Yeah.
He's told her something. She takes a beat to think about, and she's like, "Okay, what's going on? What's your plan?"
Yeah.
And I like those kind of quiet moments, those kind of artistic setups there. Also, it did surprise me. I was thinking this is going to be a little bit more lighthearted. There's a lot more humor in this book than I was expecting. There were some good moments where it's like, that's really funny, and that could lead to something really silly afterwards, until the end, and then you're like, whoa, big turn. I was not expecting that. Is that going to really color the rest of this book? Is this going to make it a lot more serious than it could be? Ultimately, these are a bunch of, retired or semi-retired semi-super criminals going to Africa to break into a giant, into a super technologically advanced city run by
super strong gorillas.
By super gorillas. Yeah, exactly. Some of whom are extremely psychic. I don't know how this is going to work, and it doesn't make any sense. And I don't think any of the other rogues are like, I don't know if this will work. They have Magenta as their powerhouse, along with Mirror Master, because Mirror Master, obviously, they need to be able to get into the city, I think, probably more easily, and it's Mirror Master that's going to do that for them. But Magenta's their heavy hitter, and she's barely holding it together. So, this could go a couple different ways, and having that kind of mood change at the end, I'm like, well, maybe it's not going to be as fun. But I think I'm along for the ride on this one. These prestige format, I do like the square, the square bound magazine format. They're a bitch to find place for and get bags for, but I just put them on the shelf with the rest of my trades. They're fine. But they look beautiful. They really do look beautiful.
I have them. Interesting that I have them handy here. This is just by accident. The store that I do the auctions, they put they'll put the bundle in this backing board, this cardboard backing board. So I've just been recycling them and using them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are. There's something that they're a little bit of a bitch, and I do think there's a little bit of doomsday clock concerns of getting your fingers on them and getting them all messy when it is a black back.
Yeah.
But
it's just too bad. But some of them are matte, though. I do like the matte finish.
Yeah,
this is matte finish, and I like it's pretty cool. You've got the non-matte glasses, and everything else is matte. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'll enjoy the rest.
All right. Okay, well, we're going to start wrapping this episode up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. in the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him, and we do something very similar here. We woof at something that may be a TV program or a film or a charitable initiative, maybe a comic, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or in this case, viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. You're the only one to talk about. So, Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is something that actually just came up today. I don't know if I mentioned it the last time, but I did see Everything Everywhere All the Time, and as a film, one of the most brilliant films I've seen in a long time. Best film so far this year. It's great. It's wonderful. But the theme of it is multiverse, and ever since then, I've been noticing there's a lot of multiverse stuff that's popping up, and one of it just came to my attention today, and it's a adaptation. It's a BBC adaptation of a Kate Atkinson book from several years ago called Life After Life. And in it, it's a story about a woman who dies a lot. Basically, from childhood to adulthood, every time she dies, she gets a do-over. She starts way back to birth and then goes through life again, hopefully kind of understanding enough through either deja vu or just, approaching things slightly differently to not die that time and to keep going from it. And the first, actually, I think all 4 episodes dropped today. If you have BBC iPlayer, they should all be up there. And if not, I'm sure they're coming to the US at some point on HBO Max or one of those streaming services. But it's brilliant. It's very emotional, very cool, beautiful story with a narrator, which is kind of interesting. But the adult version of the main character, Ursula, is played by Thomasin McKenzie. Really great cast in it. James McArdle, Jessica Brown Findlay, Jessica Hines, are all in it. But I think it's really cool. I think anybody who loves sort of multiverse sort of stories, taking this sort of very traditional book, Life of a Woman, but, hitting at it from a multiverse kind of perspective where things change and lots of things change because of one little fix that she makes each time. It's pretty cool, very fascinating. Life After Life. And also the book, you could get the book too, because the book's really good. So
okay. My woof of the week, speaking of rebirth, is headed toward the inaugural season of the new version of the United States Football League, the USFL. Yes. If you are unfamiliar with the story, in the 80s, from 1983 to 1985, there was a spring football league in the United States, which consisted of 18 teams. This version, at least initially, of the United States Football League, which does own the IP from the original league, is only 8 teams. They're operating in a bubble. So all the games are being played from Birmingham, Alabama. If you watched any of the games, the 4 games that happened over the weekend, unfortunately, the evening game on Sunday was postponed till the following day on Monday due to weather. It's much like the 2020 basketball season, the NBA basketball season, when they started after the pandemic, where it was all concentrated in one city. And there's just something very touching about this because my dad was excellent at football pools, and at his job he always came in first or second. And in 1983 and in 1985 he came in first, and the prize was season tickets to the New Jersey Generals. So I went to a shit ton I use shit ton a lot in this episode. I'm sorry about that. I don't usually have a potty mouth.
You use shit ton in this episode.
Yeah, shit ton. But would go to a hell of a lot of games, and there's just as the years go on, there's less and less that ties me to him, so that there's this rebirth of the New Jersey Generals is really nice. They didn't win, but that's almost besides the point. There's an excellent 1-hour documentary that's been airing on venues like ESPN and Fox, whatever the FS1, the Fox Sports 1, which details the beginnings of this new league and spotlights on particular players. And especially with everything that how Aaron Rodgers broke my heart. I mean, the Packers will always be my team, but to have a local team that I can root for in football is really cool, because I really don't have that. And though there are 2 area teams I could, but one's always sucked, and problematic. I'm Green Bay Packers. But it's just nice that there is this there's this new thing out there that harkens back to something that was older. And I do think there's a place for professional football in the spring. Hopefully that they can almost use this as view this as people, because the original USFL, Steve Young came out of that, and though he's a demon, Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie. I mean, major players came out of the USFL, and the rules are really confusing. The rules took like 10 minutes to understand, because there are some changes from NFL football, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to being a Generals fan for these next 8 weeks or so. So USFL.
Well, hopefully it lasts. Hopefully it lasts longer than the original one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think with the venture capital that's involved, I do think you're at least going to get 2 seasons, unless it's another situation like the last iteration of the XFL, which just the pandemic killed it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Oh my God, I used the Trumpism. Also, Trump was the owner of the New Jersey Generals for the last 2 years of their existence, and I'm proud to say, Dad, you were the first person in our family who said that Donald Trump is an asshole. So there's that, and there's also this actually was a Wolf of the Week one time, I think maybe before you, Steve, that there is a documentary from ESPN's 30 for 30 series called Small Potatoes, which documents the original USFL, which is certainly worth searching out for. It may be on your whatever that bundle is that has the
Hulu
Disney Plus,
the Hulu Plus, ESPN.
I'm sure it's on there. So
cool.
Look out for that. But that's my Wolf of the Week, the USFL.
Awesome.
All right. So we're going to wrap this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by listening to us through Apple Podcasts. I'm always.
You want to say iTunes? Everybody wants to say iTunes.
iTunes for 9 years. Yeah. You can listen to us through download us too through Apple Podcasts. Download function's still there for people who enjoy that. You can listen to us through Stitcher Radio and many of the other podcatching platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. And if you've been enjoying us through the Facebook Live, thank you very much for joining us. You can also catch this at any time on our YouTube channel. Please check that out and leave a positive review, because we do want to expand our profile on that particular platform. So until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Woof.